All through the marriage processes, the brides were covered up with a veil as per their custom. The time came for the grooms to lift the veils off their bride. And when Ekene lifted the veil of his own bride, he and everyone, except Amandi and his mother, were in shock at what they saw. The person who had seated by Ekene all through the marriage process was not Ndidi, but once upon a time, there lived two brothers named Ekene and Amandi. Ekene and Amandi were both sons of a man called Mazi Onochi. Mazi Onochi is a local but rich goldsmith. Though Amandi and Ekene are of the same father, their mothers were different. Ozioma, for that was the name of Ekene's mother, and Uzoamaka, Amandi's mother. Ekene and Amandi were born on the same day and same hour, and because of this, no one could tell who came into the world first. Their mothers had gone into labor at the same time and had been attended to by their own individual midwives. This situation is what has caused a feud between Ekene and Amandi, as each one claims to be the first son of their father and are always at loggerheads for this reason. Actually, the rivalry between Ekene and Amandi did not begin with them. It began a long time ago with their mothers, before Ekene and Amandi were born. Many years ago, Uzoamaka and Ozioma were best friends. Everyone in their village had admired their friendship, as the bond between them was very strong. Onochi, a young wealthy man, had seen Uzoamaka one day, and weeks later had asked her to marry him. Uzoamaka accepted Onochi's proposal and got married to him. Ozioma was happy for her friend. Uzoamaka's marriage to Onochi had not stopped the friendship between them. Their bond remained strong. But the issue started when 2 years after Uzoamaka's marriage to Onochi, she was yet to bear him children. Uzoamaka's in-laws had mounted so much pressure on Uzoamaka. They asked Onochi to take another wife and brought many women to Onochi, demanding that he chose one of the women to be his second wife so she would bear him children. But Onochi had refused because he did not want to hurt Uzoamaka. All through this period, Ozioma stood by her friend, comforting her and praying with her for the gods' intervention. The pressure from Onochi's family became intense and unbearable for Uzoamaka, and she feared that her husband may succumb to the pressure someday. So, she decided to do something about the situation. So one day, Uzoamaka said to Ozioma, "You're married, and maybe God had made it this way for a reason. So please, marry my husband. I would rather allow you, my friend, to come into my home instead of allowing another woman who is a total stranger," she said. She feared that if Onochi succumbed to the pressure from his family and brought in another woman, the woman may cause problems for her. And that is why she had decided that since her friend Ozioma was still unmarried, she should marry her husband and be a co-wife instead. "I am sorry, but I cannot marry your husband. You are a sister to me, and I cannot marry my sister's husband," Ozioma had replied. But Uzoamaka would not stop. She begged and begged Ozioma, and for many days, she did not stop going to Ozioma's house, and every time, she would go on her knees crying and begging Ozioma to take pity on her and save her marriage. And after weeks of giving it a careful thought, and because of her love for Uzoamaka and their friendship, Ozioma finally agreed to marry Onochi and be co-wife with Uzoamaka. Months later, after Ozioma got married to Onochi, she became pregnant. But so did Uzoamaka. They got pregnant at the same time. Uzoamaka became angry at her decision when she became pregnant. Why did I make a hasty decision? If only I knew I would get pregnant eventually, and much more so soon, I wouldn't have asked Ozioma to marry my husband, Uzoamaka thought and lamented. And from that time, hatred crept into her heart and she began to resent Ozioma. You are a bad friend and I've always wanted to snatch my husband. Why didn't you insist and say no when I asked that you marry my husband? Uzoamaka accused Ozioma. And so, that was how the friendship between them went sour. On the day their sons were born, they had both gone into labor at the same time. No one except God knows who really came into the world first, because the different midwives who had helped them in delivering their babies both came to break the news of the birth of his sons to Mazi Onochi at the same time. And so, from that time till now, the two young men and their mothers have been at war at each other. Ekene, unlike his half-brother Amandi, is a calm young man by nature. So, the battle and fight between him and his half-brother was sickening and tiring for him. Many times, he would prefer not to say anything and would ignore Amandi, but his mother would not allow him to. I did not give birth to a weakling. You must stand up to him. You are your father's real first son, and you must not allow anyone to intimidate you. Ozioma would always sing into her son's ears. And so, Ekene fought to show superiority, at least for the sake of his mother, and so he would not be considered a weakling by Amandi and every other person. Amandi and Ekene were always competing for who is the best man and better son of their father. Their competition also extended to who could achieve more in life. And this competition also include women. If Ekene sees Amandi with a young beautiful maiden, he would try to get a maiden he considers more beautiful and of a better social status than the one Amandu was with. And it was vice versa. Sometimes, if they could not find a maiden which they think is better, the latter would try to win over the particular maiden his brother is with. And even if the brothers would not do these things, their mothers would push them to. Are you going to allow your brother have a more better maiden? The mothers would say. And this continued for a long time. One day, a beautiful maiden called Ndidi moved to their village. She had come to live with her aunt, who had just lost her only son, and was sent by her own mother to come be a company and comfort her aunt. Ndidi was a beautiful young woman. Her beauty was so astonishing that all the unmarried men of the village wanted her and begged for her hand in marriage. But Ndidi turned down every one of them. However, when Ekene saw her and approached her, Ndidi surprisingly accepted Ekene's advances. Ekene was so elated. He had gotten the most beautiful girl in the village. He made plans to marry her after seeing her for a few weeks and informed his parents of his intention. And, as expected, this decision of Ekene got Amandi and his mother angry when they found out. You must not allow that good-for-nothing son of a greedy woman get the most beautiful woman in this village. He would boast of it if we allow him succeed at it. Uzoamaka said to Amandi, referring to Ekene and his mother Ozioma as the greedy woman. Yes, mother. There is no way I would allow him have Ndidi, Amandi replied, assuring his mother that he would take Ndidi away from Ekene. Amadi went to speak with Ndidi and tried to convince her to marry him instead, claiming that he's a better man than his half-brother Ekene, and that he is the first son of their family, and as such, he would inherit a larger portion of his father's wealth, which he promised to spoil Ndidi with. However, Ndidi refused Amandi's proposal, as it was Ekene whom she desires to marry. But Amandi would not relent, for obvious reasons. Almost every day, he would go to Ndidi and kept trying to convince her to marry him, as he was bent on beating Ekene to the game. But Ndidi turned him down every of those times. Then one day, seeing that Ndidi was a hard nut to crack, he came up with a plan with the support of his mother as usual. Amandi also informed his father and family members that he was also ready to get married. He presented a young girl named Ifunanya as the girl he wishes to make his bride. He told his father that it is on the same day Ekene's marriage ceremony with Ndidi was fixed that he also wished to have his marriage ceremony done. As expected, this caused another chaos between the two brothers and their mothers. They fought, argued, and insulted each other. Days later, after the so much heated fights and arguments between mothers and sons, Mazi Onochi, being the head of the family, gave a verdict. He declared that both marriages would happen on the same day. Amandi and his mother smiled, since it was what they wanted in order for them to execute their perfect plan. The day of the marriage ceremony came, and all the marriage rites were conducted. All through the marriage processes, the brides were covered up with a veil as per their custom. The time came for the grooms to lift the veils off their bride. And when Ekene lifted the veil of his own bride, he and everyone, except Amandi and his mother, were in shock at what they saw. The person who had seated by Ekene all through the marriage process was not Ndidi, but another young man who was dressed as a female and as a bride, but with Amandi, and as his bride was Ndidi and not Ifunanya, the girl everyone believed he was supposed to be married to. What is happening here? Who is this man? Ndidi, why are you with him and not here with me? You are my bride. Ekene poured out his questions with so much rage and confusion. Amadi and his mother began to laugh at Ekene. Oh, sorry, brother. You got married to a man. Ndidi is now mine. We have been joined together and everyone here is a witness, Amandi said, pulling Ndidi closer to him. Ekene was enraged and asked Ndidi how she could connive with Amandi to betray him. In a stuttering voice, Ndidi revealed that Amandi had threatened that he was going to kill himself if she does not marry him. She admitted that she had agreed to marry Amandi because she does not want to have his blood on her hands. Ekene begged his father and the other elders to reverse the marriage between Amandi and Ndidi so he could reclaim Ndidi back for himself. But Amandi threatened that over his dead body, would he give up Ndidi, who is now his bride legally? This resulted to another heated argument. After a while, the elders were able to calm down the both parties. And they decided that because Ndidi had admitted to marrying Amandi willfully, there was nothing they could do about it, and she would remain Amandi's wife. Ekene, heartbroken and being naturally not a troublesome person, finally accepted defeat. But the truth was that Ndidi had not willfully married Amandi. Amandi had sent men to kidnap Ndidi's aunt and threatened to kill her unless Ndidi marries him instead of Ekene. Amandi paid the young man who sat with Ekene in place of Ndidi in the course of the marriage proceedings so he could marry Ndidi without interruptions. So, that was Amandi and his mother's plan. Well, night came, the night of their wedding. Happy Amandi made love to Ndidi passionately to celebrate his victory. However, the next morning after the whole acts, Amandi woke up and started coughing out blood as he felt choked in his throat. He woke Ndidi up and beckoned on her to help him. But instead of Ndidi too, she rather started laughing at him hysterically. Amandi wondered why Ndidi refused to help him and was laughing at him instead. And from the way she was laughing, Amandi quickly had a thought and wondered if she was behind what was happening to him. Scared for his life, Amandi crawled out of his room to the general living room, calling out for help. And that was when everyone saw him in that bad state and as he gasped for breath. Ndidi also came out after him, still laughing hysterically. "What did you do to my son?" Uzoamaka asked, directing her question to Ndidi when she saw her son in that condition. And, surprisingly to everyone, Ndidi's aunt walked into the house, laughing also. It was as though she had stayed outside early that morning to wait for this moment. "Your son is a fool. He has brought this upon himself and would die the death meant for someone else," Ndidi's aunt responded to Amandi's mother's question. "The death meant for someone else? Who is that? And why do you want to kill that person?" everyone asked. That was when Ndidi's auntie went on to reveal that what Amandi was suffering was actually meant for Ekene. She and her niece Ndidi had planned to kill Ekene instead, but Amandi was too desperate to beat his brother in their silly game and had kidnapped her and threatened to kill her. So, they decided to teach him the lesson instead. Ndidi's aunt revealed to everyone that Ekene's mother was the one who had offended her by causing her son's death, and that was why she was there to take revenge. What had happened was that the previous year, when her son had been seriously ill, she had gone to beg Uzioma to allow her collect their monthly contribution. They were both in the village market cooperative, and they do a monthly contribution, locally known as Osusu or Ajo. At that time, it was Ozioma's turn to collect the contribution, but because Ndidi's aunt needed money to treat her sick son, she had begged Ozioma to allow her collect the money instead and had promised to repay her back. However, Ozioma gave the excuse that she had already promised the same money to someone else who also needed it for her son's school fees and had asked her before that time. Ndidi's aunt's son died and she blamed Ozioma for her son's death. So, she decided to take revenge and kill Ekene, Ozioma's son also. She had gone to her best friend in another village, who is a Juju woman, to help her. The Juju woman sent her daughter, Ndidi, to carry out this mission by sleeping with Ekene. And the only way to achieve that in their village was for her to marry him, since unmarried people cannot sleep or be together. And that was Ndidi's mission, and why she had immediately accepted Ekene when he had asked her out. But Amandi came, disturbing her, and went to the extreme by kidnapping her aunts and threatening to kill her. So, that was why he had been taught a lesson instead of Ekene. Ndidi and the woman revealed. When everyone heard this, they went on their knees and began to cry and begged Ndidi and her aunts to have mercy. Well, while all the secrets were being revealed, Ekene's friend, who had come to be with Ekene because of the wedding of the previous day, secretly ran out to get help and gather the villagers. The villagers arrived before Ndidi and her supposed aunts could leave. They were seized and taken to the head of the village, who banished Ndidi and her aunts from the village for attempting to take a life. Amadi was given medicine by the village's herbal doctor, which saved him and prevented him from dying. However, he lost his voice, as the effect of the charm Ndidi had infused into him was quite powerful. He became dumb and unable to speak, and remained so the remaining days of his life. He lived in regrets, wishing he had not indulged in the unhealthy competition and fights between him and his half-brother, because it was what had almost cost him his life. The mothers and son also became sober as a result of these incidents, as they regretted all their past actions. They reconciled and ended their rivalry from that day. The end. The lessons to be learned from this story is that rivalry and competing superiority, whether in relationships or achievements, can have severe consequences. Secondly, we can see that conflicts can stem from making hasty decisions. Uzoamaka's envy towards Ozioma and the conflicts that resulted thereafter were as a result of her hasty decision in making Ozioma marry her husband. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please support me by liking this video, share to your friends and loved ones, and hit on the subscribe button if you have not subscribed to my channel yet. I'll see you in my next story. Bye.